welcome, Annabelle. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
You have some cream.
Oh, thanks. We are doing a podcast outside in person for the first time. So we were going to talk about the home funeral that you had for your husband. I thought we could start, if you'd like to, by just speaking his name into the space.
Yeah. Hi. My husband's name is Thom Peterson, and I'm going to cry straight away. But thank you for letting me say his name. It's my favorite thing. I miss him. Yeah, Thom Peterson, aka the Amazing Guy. He's a performing magician, stage magician. So that's his name. It's him, and he's missed by many.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I didn't bring any tissues.
Neither did I.
Excellent.
I actually have some. I have some napkins in the car. Can I grab them?
No. Let's air dry.
Okay. Okay. I really don't mind. So just let me know.
Yeah. If there's more, then. Yeah.
Okay.
But no, it's
Sure.
fine. It's
Okay.
fine.
How did the idea for a home funeral come about?
The idea for a home funeral came about just because of how everything went from when he got sick to him being on home hospice, being able to have him at home. I decided that because I was a mortician in the UK, I worked for my best friend. She set up a funeral parlour, and it's all eco, green, natural, all that stuff. So I worked with her a lot. So I knew what was possible. I knew that you didn't have to embalm him, because she was like never embalmed anyone. So I knew that was actually possible to keep him at home. I didn't know about the legalities in this country because it was very different. But through our mutual friends, we found out that it would be possible, but that I would have to, by law, contract an undertaker or a funeral home, because you do not legally own your dead in this country, apparently. My friend Carrie, the mortician, she came over, and we hired somebody together, and she spoke to them about me, about what I'm like, and about how I work with her, and how I don't want to have anybody else involved, and that, she basically vouched for me, saying this is not some crazy lady, she can actually do this. So they let me. They came and just kind of said, okay, sign the papers, and she brought the dry ice, and that was all their involvement, and the rest was just down to us. And
so you did legally have to have a funeral director, but they didn't end up really doing anything.
No. I mean, they would have, but I didn't want them to.
Yeah.
I felt kind of, they were very nice, and they were, I've recommended them twice since then for more traditional funerals, and apparently they've done a great job. But for this, I still felt a little restricted. Like my friend Carrie said after she spoke to them, she said, "Oh, I think they're humouring you," and I'm like, "Yeah, I bet they are." And I thought, trust me to find the most alternative and out there kind of funeral home, and still have them humour me. And so I think they weren't quite sure what to expect, which is fine, because so she came and checked everything, and then so she just brought the dry ice, and we put him on that, and then she just told us to get more dry ice the next day and the next day, and that was it. And then the last day, when we took him to the crematorium, they sent a guy to kind of keep an eye on us, and I tried not to be rude, but I tried to make him feel a little bit part of the proceedings, but it was very close, it was very personal. I found him a little bit disruptive, but he did stay back. But it was like he wanted to have a look at the car that we were going to use, and I pretended our car was really small, and I watched him freak out, and I was like, no, it's that giant truck that fits a coffin over there, young man. What did you think I was going to use? So they just tolerated me and humoured me, so that was fine, and it was an experience for them, I'm sure. But so no, they didn't do anything. They did the paperwork. I had to take him to Long Beach, because that was the only crematorium where they'd let us bring him ourselves, without another funeral director or something like that. But that's how that kind of came about, just because I could. And so, because otherwise I wouldn't have, and had he been sick in the hospital, and if he hadn't been on home hospice, I wouldn't have brought him home to have a funeral at home, just because logistically that would have been, it's just, moving a dead body, it's just not a pretty thing. So, the less moving, the better I felt. So I know full well that the home funeral, it was just because of how the circumstances were with home hospice, and I took advantage of that, and I was very, very pleased that I could promise him that I'll be the last one to see him, and yeah, that was very comforting for us and for him, because he said originally he would like Carrie to do the funeral even when he first got sick, but then that couldn't happen. But I mean, I did fly her over when I thought he was about to go, and then because he's an entertainer, he turned up as soon as she came. So I was like, hey, I'm not missing this visit. So he did not die, but she brought all the kit for me, so for me to do it myself. So that's how that kind of came about. It was just really organic, more than anything. So, and
the home hospice situation.
Yeah. And the home hospice was, I've heard mixed experiences, but we had a fantastic experience. I mean, obviously in the realm of possible being able to enjoy anything at that point, but he was in our living room. I didn't make it look like a hospital room. He had the hospital bed, but everything was colourful. All his beddings was just, it was fun or cool or quirky, and he had all these toys and blankets, and we had so many visitors. We had like 11 people come from England over the 11 months. A couple of people more than once. I mean, I know LA is not a hard place to convince somebody to come visit. So we said, look, you might as well come have a vacation and say goodbye to your friend. If you can do both, and they did, and it was really, really special. All the nurses from the home hospice who came, always enjoying hanging out, and just said this is just the most special environment. It's just so full of love, and people that bring their dogs, and just to bring him dogs, and it was just, he had everything he could want, and I was just there with him all the time, and it was beautiful. It really, really was. You would not realize that somebody was dying in there. And even when he was in the room, when he had died, and when we were around and about, it wasn't like there was horrible death in the room. It was just so peaceful and full of love and extreme sadness, but still love. It was very surreal but cool environment.
Hopefully in a quieter space now.
And less bright.
With that?
And a little less bright as well.
Okay, so
you tell me where you want me to start.
Just right where we left off, I think. Was there much research that you had to do? So you had to hire a funeral director. Mm-hmm. Was there much else that you had to do in terms of like specific laws in California and things that you needed to be aware of and tracking?
I don't actually know, because I think I delegated that to my death minions.
Death minions.
So when my friend Carrie Weeks, when she came, she was before she was an undertaker, she was a researcher and librarian. So she researched all this stuff for me, and that's when she was like, okay, so here you don't own your own dead, and you have to do this and that. So she explained that to me. I think that was it. It was that you had to contract somebody by law, and that they had to find the right crematorium, because I thought I could just go to my local one, because I wanted to get like a fancy car. I was going to hire the hearse from Hollywood Forever and stuff like that, but when they said Long Beach, I'm like, yeah, that thing's not going to make it all the way down there. So the whole Long Beach thing changed everything. So I then had to rethink, and then kind of go non-standard, because I'm quite fussy, because I've been sort of involved in the death industry in one way or another, or at least remotely involved, since I was a kid. Like one of my dad's best friend was an undertaker. They worked at a traditional funeral home. It was like a family business, and sometimes when they had to repatriate somebody, my dad would go on him for the trip, and they'd deliver whoever it was back to theirs. And I remember my mum making them sandwiches, and one time they picked up a girl who actually died in the riding school that I used to go to, and she got like dragged to death, and it was kind of made it really real, because that could have been me. And the fact that he got to take her to France to a family was like really, really special. I did actually say, can I come with you? And they said no, because it's a long trip. But so I've always been in that field, and I absolutely love hearses, and I collect toy hearses, and always have done. So I wasn't gonna get one of those typical modern, boring, closed hearses that they have in America, because in Europe you have the windows and you can see the coffin and you can see the flowers and you can see everything. But here it's, they hide death here in this country, and I didn't like that. So I thought, I'm not going to spend money on something that I don't really want. I'd rather not have a hearse at all. So I asked my friend, who my husband worked for, if they would take him to Long Beach in this giant truck that they have, and I said, think about it, don't answer me straight away, take a day, think about it, and then let me know, because I don't want this to like mar your relationship with your car, because it's your work vehicle and you use it all the time, and I don't want you to kind of have like a weird trauma or something. So I said, think about it, and she was like, okay, I'll think about it. And she really did think about it, and she got back to me the next day and she says, yes, we'll use our car. I found somebody to drive, because I'm going to be so sad that I don't want to drive. And I'm like, wow, you really, really did think about this. And she's like, yeah. And so we got to use Mr. Truck, because that's the car's name, Mr. Truck. So we got to use that, because I didn't want to get a lesser hearse. If I wasn't going to get like a really spectacular hearse that I could actually enjoy myself, and Tom would have wanted that for me 100%, then I wasn't going to have that at all. So that's, I'm kind of stubborn like that.
Yeah,
it's
nice
like,
way to have your friend involved.
Yeah,
too.
very. And they were very, very close to him and to me as well, but because he worked for them during the pandemic, so they had this other relationship with him that I didn't like, and it was just so lovely to see. And he elected my friend's husband as my protector. He summoned him with I said, who do you want? Do you want anyone to like be my designated caretaker? And he was like, yeah, Ash. And I phoned Ash and I said, you've been summoned by Mr. Peterson, and will you please come with a bag of Wiener Schnitzel, and then we will instruct you. And then he just came, and they had their Wiener Schnitzel, and he said, will you look after her? And Ash went, yeah. And I went, okay. And that was it. that was my future decided, and Ash does look after me. So yeah, it's really cool. So that was how we ended up going down to Long Beach.
And you mentioned not embalming his body.
No, because that's not something I can do, or I want to. For the most part, I find it, I mean, it's a horrible practice. I've always said I don't want to get embalmed, but I'm actually thinking about getting a tattoo now, because I have no one to make those kind of instructions. But I know it's good for when it's needed, but this automatically embalming people, putting the makeup on, and this, I mean, it's in America it's very open casket. In Europe it's not like that so much, but I just, if it's not necessary, it really it ruins, not ruins, but it gives people the wrong experience with death and funerals, because they think every funeral you have to go look at the dead person, which when you really don't want to. You might not, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but then whoever's in the coffin doesn't even look like themselves anymore. And I didn't, and I just don't, I've never liked it. And each to their own. It's a necessary practice for some, especially when there's families fighting and you have to keep them for a long time. And I don't know, I've seen a lot from working at the place in the UK, but so no, we just turned the air down and had the dry ice. And we'd go to Smart and Final to buy dry ice. And for me, that was just so surreal, because just the fact that you can go to the grocery store and buy dry ice, it was just, to me, it's kind of, as being a foreigner, it was just kind of crazy. So yeah, we just did that, and had the air down really low, and we had 3 days. That was
like a legal limit for.
It was the sort of more recommended time physically before things would start happening in the sort of things start happening outwardly, not just inwardly.
Right.
So and I didn't want that. But yeah, that was kind of 3 days. Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about those 3 days? What were those 3 days like?
So he was actively dying for about 4 days. He had the death rattle for quite some time, which was very tough. But because I have my friend at hand, I phoned her and I said, I don't know if I can take this. Would it be bad if I put headphones on? And she's like, no, because you're not hiding from it. You just don't need it in your face right now, because it's not going to make a difference. So I did, but I also recorded it just in case I'd get any regrets and go, oh, why did I put the headphones on? I don't know, maybe I was overthinking it. So I recorded that, and then he died at 2:45 a.m.
This was April 2022?
Yes. No, he got sick in April.
Okay.
April 3rd, 22. Then he died March 8th, 23.
Okay.
So
okay.
He died then in March. So he died in the night, and then I phoned my friend from England, and I said, he's gone, and I said, should I set his face now, or should I wait? I don't know what. I was kind of obviously a bit like, whoa, and she was like, just do it now. It's going to be easier, and then you'll have done it, and then you can just get on with doing, whatever the logistics and things with Betsy. So I did. So I used a towel to tie his jaw up, so he sat with his mouth closed. She left me some eye caps, which I was worried about doing that, because that's just a weird thing to be doing anyway. I don't know if you've seen them. They're like contact lenses for the whole eye, but they got little spikes on them. So you put the flat bit on the eye, and then put the lid over it, and then it doesn't go back. There's kind of the little spikes hold the lid down. Sorry, it's very graphic, but it's how it is. So I don't know what I did. I didn't rush it. I didn't take like really long or anything, but
you're by yourself at this point?
Yeah, Betsy's around, the lady who stayed with us for 6 months. But yeah, I was alone. And I don't know what I did, but I kind of, the eyes were slightly open, and because of the plastic, it looked like there was like a little glint coming out, and it just looked, it looked like he was just kind of sleep smiling or something, but just really naturally. And he just looked like he was dreaming of me, and I took pictures of him because I was just amazed that I did that. I was like, and I'm glad, because I wouldn't want anyone else to do that, because I know him, you know, I know what he looks like, and yeah, that was something. So I fixed his face and his eyes and his mouth. Excuse me. Fortunately, I didn't have to sew his mouth together because I really didn't want to do that. And Carrie had left me the sutures and the needle and everything, and I had done it before, and that's why I was like, I'd rather not do that to Tom. So that's when we were like, yeah, shit, do the towel straight away, and then, or a bandage or something like that. Oh, a bandage. Anyway, so then it was like, I don't know, 6 o'clock by then or something, 6 a.m. And then we called the funeral lady and said, you know, he's gone. So she came with the dry ice, and then we all lived. I think my best friend came as well, I remember. And we laid him on the dry ice, and then started the arrangements. And I mean, I had thought about it quite a lot to an extent, but yeah, it was just, things changed in the last minute. I wanted to get a witness cremation, but because some of the most important people in our life couldn't do a weekday, they could only come and help and do the funeral on a Saturday. I kind of forewent the witness cremation, and it was really, really tough because I'd promised him I was going to be the one who closes the last door on him, the very last door.
That's what a witness cremation is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they would have closed the door, but I would have convinced them to let me, so because I do that, so I get quite persuasive. But so it was basically about me being the last one to see him and the last one to say goodbye. And through those reasons, we couldn't do that. But it was, you know, it was like a trade-off. But I was like, okay, so we'll leave him there. But that was like kind of the one compromise I had to make. I didn't want to compromise a lot. But so what happened was it was kind of crazy. We have this like affinity with hummingbirds, and we used to sit outside and have a drink and watch the hummingbirds after work, and so it was like our little ritual. And when he was sick in the house, a hummingbird flew in and came to see him. And then when we went to get the dry ice, I found a dead hummingbird by our door. And I've never seen a dead hummingbird in my life. I mean, not like dead. So I scooped it up. I don't know, I just wasn't even thinking, I just scooped it up, and I was like, Betsy, I've got a dead bird, I've got to put it in the freezer. And I just ran back to the house, and I was like looking at it, and I just grabbed a piece of fabric to put it in, and it was one of his pocket squares. So I had this beautiful hummingbird on one of his little pocket squares, and we were looking at it, and I'm like, she's going with him. So I wrapped her up, put her in the freezer, and I'm like, well, that solved the problem, that he's not going to be alone for that last, from me leaving to when he does go into the retort, that he's not alone. I don't know, it's a little illegal, because, you know, Migratory Bird Act and all that stuff, but turns out I was actually on one of the licenses, so legally I was allowed to do it, but I didn't know. But I was breaking the law, but sorry. It's too late now. Anyway, so yeah, so she went with him, and that was just, it was quite magical, because I was so upset about not being able to be with him until the end, that this was just like, here you go. And I just decided that she was old, and then she committed suicide so she could be with him. I made up this story. So yeah, so we had to leave him there. So that was the cremation thing.
So what else did you do in that time in terms of personal rituals, cleaning, dressing him, and then also the funeral itself?
So we didn't do any ritual washing because that's something that we were doing every day anyway.
Okay.
So there was no any kind of emotions in that. It was more of a negative thing that, you know, because him having to have bed baths, it was just not, it was just not nice. So that was not something that we would have found
That's
any
a really
benefit.
good point. I hadn't thought about that. You're doing it every day or so anyway, so it's not.
Yeah, and
it's
I hadn't.
Not special.
No, it's not at all. It's the opposite. It's like I don't want to do that again to him. You know. So he was, you know, he was already clean, and then we got him dressed in his best black suit, like he was performing at the most prestigious dinner party ever.
Did you pick the outfit?
Yeah. It's like it was like his best, his best suit,
nice.
And his favorite tie, because when he performed, he liked to look. Yeah, he liked to get dressed up nice, and he looked so good. So white shirt, his tie, little pocket square, best suit, and we just put the top on because the legs was too much. So I went and got I might have to get those tissues after all.
Sure. Yeah.
Should we have a pause?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Where were we?
Done the washing, and
you had the top.
Oh, we put the So he had this beautiful suit on, and and I'd gone to buy some velvet to like drape the whole bed, because I wanted the time when after he had died, I wanted it to look even less like a hospital bed. So I wore red and black velvet, and I draped the whole bed with it. And then he had loads of like furry blankets and stuff, because he was always cold. So he was draped in fur, and he had all his toys around him. He had like, I got him this octopus from IKEA, and it was like such a comfort thing at night. I could see him holding on to it, and like it was just something to do. I mean, we sort of slept next to each other. I had a cot that I'd lined up next to his bed, but it was just always this comfort having these soft creatures, and it was just great. So he was there with all his guys, his army, and flowers. I'd said to friends, you know, I said, usually people say in lieu of flowers, make a donation. I said, this isn't it. I want all the flowers. I want it ridiculous. I want a perverse amount of flowers. And that's what happened. It was like ridiculous. I was like, I want all the flowers. So they were just, we had like 2 huge arrangements. People sent flowers. It was just like, it was glorious. It looked like the Huntington Gardens, honestly. It was just fantastic, and he was just around with all these flowers and this velvet and these colours, and we have like an open plan living room, dining room kind of area. So I had a big dining table, and I'd requested a cardboard coffin, which was another whole thing, because I didn't want to spend a ridiculous amount of money on a coffin, which I don't like anyway. And I wanted to decorate it myself, because that's one thing that we used to do a lot working at a natural undertaking, which is my friend's business. We'd get these cardboard coffins, and they were coffin shaped, they weren't caskets, and they had handles, and they were just like a normal coffin, but they were just super reinforced cardboard, and they were great. And
what do you like about the cardboard as a material?
It's cheap. It's recyclable. It breaks down as quickly as anything. It's all that's necessary. Unless you have like a big stately funeral and the coffin's on view, or you have something to prove. I don't know. But for me, it was just. I mean, I'm an artist, so to me, the idea of having a coffin to decorate with friends and family is just fantastic. And we'd done it a couple of times where we had like public engagement events, and we'd have a coffin, and we'd have little things, and people could stick stuff on just to eliminate some fear of death. So we were very, very active like that, and so I wanted exactly that. Could I find one? Oh, hell no. So I
couldn't find a cardboard coffin.
No, could find a cardboard casket box. That was it. With think did it have handles? But it was just like a coffin, a casket-shaped box, which is what they use for transport between mortuaries and hospital and stuff. But anyway, so I got that, and it wasn't as nice, obviously, because it just looked like a box. So I went completely mental. So I put it outside one night because I was on my own, and I put it on the patio, and I got loads of wine and beer and weed, and I just got really high and drunk, and I covered the whole thing in playing cards, like the whole coffin, everything, every inch of it, and I brought it back inside, and then I got all these craft materials, and then the next day loads of friends came and we all decorated the coffin, and I thought if I cover it in playing cards already, it's going to make it less scary to stick stuff to it, because it's that blank canvas that it takes the first step. It's just hard. So we stuck everything to it. We had so many gifts and cards and all these like messages of love, and so all my friends, I had a pile of cards that they picked out a few things, and they brought photographs that they printed themselves, or I don't know, there was like everything on there. There was like a toy stuck to it. It was a get well card, which I wasn't too sure about. And then I was like, yeah, fuck it, it's all right. Whatever. He was a comedian, right? So,
do you want to say what you put on the inside?
Yeah. So on the inside, because I was going to be the one to close the coffin, my friend had told me about this lady that she had, and she wanted a leopard print coffin, and on the inside she wanted a full life-size picture of the singer from England called Cliff Richard. So he's like it's just crooner. So she wanted to have Cliff Richard upon herself in the ground, and I was like, I love this lady. It's crazy when you meet dead people and they're like, I love you, I wish you weren't dead.
I know,
You're
like,
so
wow,
cool.
you have a sense of humor,
right
till the end.
And I just love that. And then for the last Christmas I had like this boudoir pin-up shot done for Tom, and I was like, haha. So I printed out those pictures and I put them on the inside of the lid, and nobody knew. And when I came to put the lid on, I think we were just doing a video for my parents, and said, okay, I'm putting the lid on. I was like, oh, Dad, sorry. You weren't supposed to see. I mean, it's all very tasteful. But yeah, so I know he would have laughed his head off. He would have loved that so much. And it was just, there was a lot of laughter. There really was. But the decorating, the coffin decorating, and the whole, it was, I think it was 2 nights of people coming, and because it was so open plan, the kitchen was kind of sort of around the corner, so you could be in the house, you could be near the coffin and not necessarily see Tom. So because I knew it wasn't going to be for everyone seeing their dead friend, so I wanted to make it a space where you could take part, or you could just be with the people and just be in the other room, but not be hiding or anything. And then I made like a little area next to the bed. So the bed was here, the dining table where the coffin was there, and then there was like this sort of lounge area, and I made a little area where people could sit with him and chat to him or to each other. And so there was something going on at all times. So there was somebody sitting there, there were people laughing and crying in the kitchen, there were people laughing and crying around the coffin, they were chatting about Tom, about everything, and eating, drinking. I don't know if there was music. There may have been, but it wasn't like prominent. No, but it was, it was great. And this being LA, everybody got really excited that they could bring their winter coats because it was so cold. And I was like, yeah, okay, so think mortuary when you come round. So I had a bunch of happy ladies going, is this my winter coat? I made the effort especially. So the vibe was already, because it was so surreal, I think the vibe was good. And to be honest with you, speaking of surreal, that's been my thing that got me through the whole thing somewhat, is because it was all so surreal. It's from the second he got sick to right this second. It's just been surreal, because, you know, I'm not from here. I'm terrified of the medical system here. I have epilepsy, so it was always like when we moved here, it's like, oh yeah, always got to worry about me and maybe, you know, having to go to the hospital and all this stuff. So it just terrified me. So when I had to phone an ambulance, I dialed 999 first. So I was like, oh! And then I was like, shit, how much is this going to cost? And I'm like, I don't care. And then I phoned, you know, just having these guys come, and I've never been in an ambulance here, and they're having the paramedics and the fire people be the same, and then it's Burbank and everything's shiny and everybody was just like burly and good looking, and it was just so surreal. And then they take us to this fancy hospital, and then it turns out it's the hospital that was used in one of our favorite series, Parks and Recreation. It was that, and you know, it's like you drive into Walt Disney Plaza and Roy Rogers Park, and I'm like, what is going on here?
That really does up the surreal.
Yeah. Oh, he's on the Bob Hope ward.
Yeah.
It's like, what? And then please, no film, no photography in the hospital. No, only here.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was surreal. When he was in the hospital, it was right next to Walt Disney Animation Studios and right opposite Forest Lawn. So, you know, we'd see all the funerals outside of the window. I mean, he couldn't see because he was blind, but I'm like, this is kind of shit. It's not what I want to be seeing. But, and then just everything, and I just made it weirder. I used to like sing and dance to him when I'd have to do something really unpleasant to him physically for his care. I just come up with these stupid stories and just make up stuff, and I don't know, I'd call the meds, I'd call them the Baphomeds, and I can't remember. I found this Facebook post where I'd listed of all these words that I made up to make things a bit less normal, but yeah, I just made it all super more weird than it already was, and that helped. And I'm still doing that now, because I still can't quite get my head around that all happened. Really at all. So and to keep it surreal, that's how the funeral ended up being as surreal as it was. Because of we moved here at the height of we moved to Burbank in the pandemic. We moved to this country just before, but so we obviously were missing our friends back in England. We were missing our friends here who we couldn't see. So for my best friend, the Undertaker, and I, we both turned 50 a month apart from each other. So we always wanted to celebrate it together, but we couldn't. So we ended up making her a video, and I got this inflatable pony suit. And because of this Parks and Recreation, this was actually before he got sick, we wanted to do an homage to the horse in the show, Little Sebastian. So we went up in the mountains, and I did this like forest safety video with the horse, and I was prancing around and dressaging in the mountains and ran into hikers, and that started my whole inflatable suit thing. And then we made some new friends, and we went to San Diego, so to be able to hang out with them, we all put on inflatable suits, and we ran around the beach, and we made people's day. Honestly, everyone was crowding around us because we were just like, just being complete tits. That's absolutely reckless, wild abandon. It was just fantastic, and we put it online, and we just went, I think the world needs this. And it just blew up, and all our friends just absolutely loved it, and we just watched it so many times. It was like a balloon dog and an inflatable bear hugging each other and stuff. So I'm like, that's made us and our friends the happiest, that video. So I recreated it for the funeral. So because it was such short notice, and with the plans of the witness cremation changing, and that had to be on the Saturday, I was like, I don't need like a big meal or anything. Like, I don't want a traditional anything. I just want to put on the suits and I want to run. I want us all just to run and be crazy. So my friend lives in Santa Monica, and she lives at the end of a cul-de-sac by Brentwood Country Club, and anyway, it's all, or wherever it was. Anyway, it's a really beautiful area, so she said, you can come and do it at my house. So we drive there after Long Beach, and we do a little, I wanted to do a ceremony, but nothing. Obviously, I'm very anti-religion.
So this is just after you've dropped him off?
Just after we dropped him off, we drove over to our friend's house. We had some champagne and stuff like that, and we'd made like votive candles for everyone with Tom's face on it and stuff. And my friend Al had found this pagan Yule ceremony that for like a New Year's thing, where you get a string and you tie it into a big loop, and everybody holds onto the string around a fire, and then you get a pair of scissors and you cut each piece and you pour it into the fire, and then you make some, this is completely wrong, but you make some wishes for the new year, something like that. Well, we kind of took that idea and adapted it into memorial ceremony for Tom. So she had a fire pit, so we stood around that and we passed the string around, and then I tied the knot, and then everybody said something or thought something, and then cut the string, put it into the flame, and did that all going all around, and then we stirred the ashes together, and then it was all complete again. So the you know, it was united. It made sense to us, and it was really nice.
Yeah.
It was just nice to hear what they had to say, and it was like 8 of us, I think 8 or something.
Yeah.
It was just our closest friends.
Yeah.
And then we had more champagne, and then we went out on the street, and I was the brown pony. I had a black pony with a golden mane. I had a skeleton flamingo half thing with like legs, so it was like the person's body, and it just kind of went around. And then I got a parrot, I got a bunny, my friend, she got a dragon, and then I brought Tom's own suit, which was a gigantic inflatable balloon dog. And my friend's husband, who he's quite shy, and he never does anything like reckless and stupid, like wild abandon. That's not him. Mm-hmm. And when he said, "Can I wear Tom's suit?" I was like, yes. Oh my God, yes. It just blew me away that he, being the person he is, and you could see the person in that suit was just letting go. It was just wonderful, and we all just ran around. And actually, before we ran around, my friend read the eulogy, because it was all sort of not 100% planned. It was just vaguely planned. I was like, Bonnie, you read the eulogy. You're a movie star. You can do this. But we didn't think of where, so we were just all stood on the street going, okay, shit, where do we do? What do we do? So she climbs up on the tree. It's a tree like this. It's quite high up. She's a contortionist. So she's up in the tree. She's bending around, and she reads the eulogy, which is it starts, you want a physicist to read at your funeral, and it's I can show it to you. It's just wonderful. It's the best atheist eulogy you could ever imagine. It's all science based, and it's just, I can't even, it's just so good. And so she was reading it, and when she said his name, she went, "Our beloved Tom." This leaf just fell down, this dried leaf, and somebody went, "Yeah, I got it." So I kept it. You know, it's silly stuff. And she was like addressing us. She'd say, what did she say? The inflatables or something, and we were like, yay, and cheering, and there's people coming out from their houses and like looking what's going on, and we see this little girl. She's like a teenager, and she's just sort of, she kind of got caught up in our area, but she was dowsing or something like that. And my friend Megan, she says, "Oh, you know," she goes, "Well, what are you doing here?" And Megan says, "Oh, this is a funeral." And this girl's like, "What?" And she says, "Yeah, this is a funeral." And she sort of explains how he was a magician, and we're all a bit weird and this is a bit different. And the pony over there, that's the widow, if you want to say hi. And so I'm like, hi, and I sort of briefly explained as a pony. I said, you wanna join in? And she's like, yeah. Is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, this is about love and inclusivity and everything. So she's like, yeah, cool. I said, if you want to wear a suit, you're welcome to. And she's like, no, it's all right. I'll walk away, turn around. She's in the bunny suit. I'm like, girl, I love you. So she's part of the whole thing. She's part of the inflatable crew cheering Bonnie on from the tree. And then she goes, and now run. And we all run backwards and forwards. There's people on the street cheering. And nobody knows what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And we're just going, Tom's amazing! Wah! Just, and hugging, and there's some people like not dressed up and they're hugging the inflatables, and it was just crazy. And then when we'd all exerted ourselves, we're kind of, winding down, she was still in the bunny suit, and I said, she's like, oh, I have to go home now. And I said, well, you can keep the suit if you want, but can you do me a favor? Can you just go home, walk in the kitchen and say, Mom, I've just been to a funeral? She's like, yeah. And I said, I'm really sorry, you're never going to see anything like this ever again. And she's like, I know. And I lost her number. I am gutted. I wanted to invite her to the memorial or ask her parents if she could. And I lost her number, and I would love to see that girl again. Her name is Phoebe. And can you imagine her going home?
She will remember that day for the rest of her life.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think I told her that. And,
Yeah.
and I said, and I'm going to remember you for the rest of my life as well. So it was amazing. So that's what we did. And we videoed everything, and we shared it with everyone. And because it was such a small amount of people, because it was such short notice, because he was at home. Had he been in a funeral home, I would have had more time to plan something, and then obviously if I'd had a traditional funeral, I would have had the undertakers help me find places, but this wasn't that kind of funeral, so I felt a little bit bad for not involving more of his friends, or just even acquaintances and peers and everything, but it wasn't possible, and that's why it was good that we took these videos, because then they could be there, and it showed that there couldn't have been loads of people there unless you had inflatable suits. I mean, it would have been amazing if there was like 10 to 20 more people, but that was fine. But because somebody said, oh, I hear there's been a funeral. I'm like, sorry, but and I mean, I did put on Facebook and I did let everybody know that the coffin decorating was happening and whatever. But yeah, it was fine. And last year, I think this March was the first anniversary. Sorry, my dates are all, I'm still full of grief fog and widow fog and brain fog and all sorts. My mum said on the anniversary, I sent her the video, or she said, I'll watch the video again. And she said, I wasn't sure about this when you first said you were doing this, but every time I look at it, I smile, and I can't not smile. And that's just really, really wonderful. And she said, I am so glad you did this, because I really wasn't sure. I thought you just completely lost your mind, but I didn't want to interfere. She's in Germany, so she couldn't have done it anyway. But the fact that she said that was quite cool, because she's not like super conservative, but she's of a different generation, and German Catholic. Just that's not something. I mean, I'm her kid, so she obviously knows what to expect from me, but still. Yeah. And I said, I'm glad you didn't say anything. I appreciate that, because you could have, and you didn't, and I really appreciate that. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't either. And I'm like, this is fantastic. So
it's so wonderful to hear you talk about it, and also I've gotten to see some photos and videos, and the celebratory aspect really comes through so strongly through me. I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about celebrations of life instead of funeral. This really, I just feel it so strongly here.
It was, and
he feels so celebrated.
Yeah, because he was a goofball, and he's a comedian, and he could never read the room. I'm like, stop joking, I'm being serious. So I thought, I've got to be completely unserious in the most serious time of my life. And it was just fitting to him. It really was. And us as a couple. And yeah, I like no trace of religion and nothing austere or anything like that. It's it's just a celebration of a silly, silly man.
Yeah.
A silly, silly, wonderful, beautiful, amazing, special, amazing guy. Yeah.
Something else I really feel is a lot of touches that you did to help people situate themselves and be involved how they wanted to be. Like you mentioned, covering it in all of the cards first. You mentioned the way that you had the layout so that people could choose a way of being involved. I'm really impressed with, like, even, you know, like you being in the position that you're in such an intense period, and the thoughtfulness that went into because I think there could be a thing if you're having a home funeral of being like, look, we are like having him out and you need to come, you know, and you didn't do that. You didn't dictate people's experiences with it.
And some people who came I hadn't seen for a while, because it really it didn't matter if you loved him, you can come and some people, they struggled a little bit, and that's why I was so glad that the layout of the house allowed for that, because if I didn't have that, then I think if they'd have to like go to a different room just to have some space, they probably would have felt more self-conscious. But there was literally a way of being in the room without having to see him if you didn't want to, which was, it's not for everyone. I just really wanted to respect my friends and the fact that we're already doing something really crazy. And but I think everybody did have a look at least. I know a couple of friends I looked over and they were crying with each other and stuff. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. And much food, much drink, and just such a, you know, there was laughing and joking, and he was just there. It was just part of it. It was like he was asleep, you know? Because I mean, he was just, throughout all the time at home, he couldn't, you know, get up or do anything because he was half paralyzed from the brain surgery. He just liked to be a part of it, you know. You know, when people were having a conversation or whatever, he just liked to be part of what's happening in the room. And this is exactly the same after he died. He was just a part of it. He was the star, but also like an audience member. It was just it was just really nice. Isn't the right word? I don't even know what the word for it is. Peaceful. I don't know. Special. It's just special. I think that's the only way to put it. That was something. So when the time came to take him, oh God, this was so I sent everybody out before we carried him out, and I said, I'm going to put the lid on the coffin, and I wanted to do that alone, and I sang to him a little bit, and then we played our wedding song, which is just, it's called The Luckiest, and it's just,
the Ben Folds song?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that song.
Yeah, that was our first dance, and that was the song, because there's like a line in there that he sees this old couple across the street, and one dies, and then the other one dies a few days after. And when we heard that song, we were like, that's us. We want that. And the fact that I didn't die when he died, I don't understand. I thought I was just gonna stop living, just end. And the fact that I still can't get over the fact that I just didn't just die. So that song, it meant, and oddly enough, it meant so much more to us in the end as well. And that's why I played that rather than, you know, something else. It's just because it was so fitting. So I sang to him a little bit, and then I got the hummingbird and I put her on his chest, and then I put the pin-up pictures on his face. And I mean, the whole coffin was jam-packed full of stuff. We put most of the toys in there, and I called everybody back in, and then we carried him out with my friend's dad. They were circus family, so he was wearing his like ringmaster jacket, and he was like leading it with the music, and I was following with my extremely squeaky shoes, which was just hilarious. And we popped him in Mr. Truck, and then drove him down. Oh, and one of his a magician that we knew and he'd worked with had died like a day or so before we took him to the crematorium, so I wrote a little note on Tom's coffin for Mark as well, and it just felt right. I know it's Tom's coffin and stuff, but I just wanted to have a little note for Mark. And then we went to the crematorium and arrived the spectacle that we were, you know, people with different colour hair and dressed up, and Bonnie was all colourful, and everybody else was like super gothic, and then a couple of hippies and stuff, and they bring out the trolley, and we're like, okay, here's the coffin, and they all come out and they're like, oh my god, this is the best coffin, and we just stood outside just chatting and taking pictures, and then Bonnie gets she says, do you mind if I just pour some whiskey on it? And the crematorium lady, she was loving it. She was like, yeah, anything you want. So she made a little speech and poured the whiskey over it, and we're like, ah, and just overacting and being very theatrical. And then we said goodbye. And as a professional courtesy, the crematorium lady said, do you want to see where he's going to go? And she showed us all the areas, and she said, do you want number 1 or number 2? And I said, I'll have number 1 because he's number 1. So I got to pick my own picture. So and then I thought he was supposed to get cremated on Saturday, but then there was a delay, and he didn't get cremated until Sunday. But that was okay because he wasn't alone, and also I think they called all their colleagues and said, come and look at this coffin. I really think they did that, and I'm just choosing to believe that's what they did, because I sort of mentally said to him, I said, yeah, they wanted to come check you out because you're such a superstar. So that was that.
Yeah, wow.
And his ashes, I didn't really think about it because they came back quite quickly. So I brought back this box, and I'm like, shit, what do I do with it now? And I put it in my bed first night, and I'm like, yeah, no, this is no good. So the next day I said, I need to go out and find something. I want to find something that I want to hold him. I want to hold him, and I want to be comfortable. So Betsy and I, we go to the Empire Centre, and we go to like Marshalls and wherever, and I go to like TJ Maxx, and I find this squirrel that's like a cushion, and it's just in the dog toy section. I don't even know what it is, and it has like, I think it was put like in the microwave or something, had like a beanbag in it, and then it was like a heat cushion or something like that. And we had this thing with the squirrel, because of his American accent, he couldn't say squirrel, he'd say squirrel, and we'd say squirrel. So this was a long running joke, so I was like, squirrel! And so I get this thing, I take out the bag, it fits, his ashes fit in there perfectly, it's padded, and I'm holding this, and I get so comforted because it's heavy and it's soft and it's squishy, and it's just, and he's still in it now. And I've taken him to the theatre. I went to the cemetery with my own dead person. I went to see Harold and Maude, my favourite film, at Hollywood Forever, and I had to take him. It was like maybe a month after he died or something. So yeah, I took him. And about a week after he died, there was a stage production of Harold and Maude, and we all went there, and I took him as well. And I went to see the actors afterwards, and I said, "You had a dead person in your audience," and they loved it. And they were like, taking pictures, and because of, if you know the film and the play, it's all about death and dying, but not dying. It's also about life and love, and it was just perfect. And I would like to make sure more people know about the way you can keep people's ashes.
Yeah.
Because it makes me so, makes me so sad to see all these generic cold urns sitting on people's mantelpieces when they, and wives like hugging them or kissing these cold urns when really there's something else. And initially I thought, oh, maybe I could market this or something, but then I'm like, I can't benefit from other people's pain, even though I'm, might be offering something they didn't know. So I haven't written it off completely, but I would like to ideally do something like that, because, people know about shrouds a little bit more, but it's still not standard place. And I was thinking the other day, I was like, why didn't I just do a shroud for Tom? And then I think it was about the coffin decorating that, because you can make a shroud with friends as well, but that just wasn't going to happen, so I think that's why. But yeah, totally lost my thread now.
Well, I think the thing with the squirrel, I think just so much in you telling this story, it's such a beautiful story in and of itself, but it also, I think, shares all of these amazing ideas with people. Like, people don't know what is possible or what they're allowed to do. That's or it. Like, in a place of intense grief, maybe they're not thinking like, what's the most creative, fun, me or them thing we could do here. They just tend to call a funeral director and then have them kind of run things. So I think so many things about what you're sharing will probably give people ideas.
And I hope so, and I will tell anyone who'll listen because of that reason, because I want other people to be able to not necessarily plan on that, but just to know, because I know if Tom had died suddenly, it would have been a whole different scenario, because I wouldn't have been able, but then he probably would have been in a mortuary, and then I may have had time, or I don't know, I can't even, we can't compare or even think about it, but it would have been a different story, 100%. So I just went with what I had and with what I could, and it's just, that's what I mean, it was all very organic. There was just no other way it could have gone, and that's what makes it really special. And and the fact that I can share it, and because it's on the surface, it doesn't look super sad. It is super sad. It doesn't, like, when you first look at the pictures, you're like, oh, that looks kind of fun, but they're dead. So I being magicians, I like that sort of double take. It's like, it's first glance it's something else, and then it's like, oh, but it's actually this. So I like that. So it had all the elements that I wanted. But I will honestly, I want more people to know about the possibilities. And it really wasn't that hard. It was just telling them that's what I want. And make it happen. Cool. And I still had to pay a bunch of money for, I don't know exactly what for, but
with the funeral director.
I still had to. It was still like $2,000 or something.
Wow.
And they said, oh, we're giving you the professional discount. I'm like, what? I know that was included the cremation, but that's like $600 or something like that. So anyway, but it's too late now, and it's only money, and he's more important. So and originally I was going to have him made into these parting stones, but then I was like, oh, they all look the same, and so if like somebody's Nan and Tom, they'd look the same, like the same stones, I was like, I don't know, I don't like it. And
so
it was
for people watching, that's you can do that with the ashes.
You can do with the ashes, it's, you send them the ashes, and they have a facility where it's kind of like a ceramic kind of thing, and they make these stones, and sometimes the stones can change color depending on the person or whatever. It's fascinating, but and I thought that was a really nice way to divide him up, because that was something I knew I wasn't going to keep the whole ashes in one piece.
Right, so you can make multiple stones. Okay.
When you send them the stones, you get about 80 to 100 or something, of different sizes, so you can. And I really do like them, because I love the idea of going into like here a grass area and building spirals or laying them out and taking photographs and then sharing it. But I still can.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I didn't do that first. I'm glad I have the squirrel. And it's not necessarily going to stay there. But the thing is, I'm an artist, and I could make something myself with the ashes. I've got them here in this bead that my friend gave me, but you can actually see them.
Oh yeah, wow.
So this bead had like a little divot in it, so I thought, I'll just take a spoonful, I put it in there, and then I poured clear resin onto it, and now it looks like a brain, which is crazy because he died of brain cancer. So that's
so cool.
And this is
doing it clear over the top so you can see is such a great idea.
Yeah, and that was just because that's what I had, and I'm like, oh yes, this is great. I did this on purpose. I should always do this. So what else? I've given some to his son. I took some ashes to Germany and sprinkled them in the River Rhine. So because he travelled all over the world with his job, so I just wanted him to like be mainly with me, but still be other places. So that's but if speaking of cremation, that wasn't my first choice. That was a necessity. I really don't like cremation because of the ridiculously high pollution, and apparently you couldn't now build a crematorium legally in California because of the pollution. They wouldn't let you build a new one, as far as I heard. But I would have preferred like the aquamation, the wet cremation, because that has the same effect. You can get powder out of, it's like dried, but the byproduct that runs off, it can actually be used as fertilizer. So you get your person's ashes, and then your person can fertilize food. And it's just, I don't know, I just love everything about it.
Yeah.
But that wasn't a possibility. But for me personally, if anybody's around when I die, anybody who knows me, I would like that, I think. But I love the idea of dividing.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I was going to give my parents a little bit of his ashes, but then I thought, he wouldn't want to sit on their shelf, and just I was like, no, he wouldn't want that. So we went to the Rhine, drank some wine, and scattered. So I've not decided what the final thing is. I think I probably will make some art with it, but there's a lot.
It's nice that you have time to do that gradually.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm glad that I kept the whole lot, and it's just in my bed, it's just nice. I don't do the talking to him a lot because I needed to, from the beginning, to get it into my head that he's not coming back. I felt like if I speak to him too much, it's just not going to sink in, because we had a long distance relationship to start off with, and then we were either together or he was away. Working, or America, England. So it was very hard at first to realize that he wasn't coming back, because I was used to him being away.
Right.
And that's how I grew up with my dad. He worked for a German airline, and he was either home or away. And that's why Tom and my relationship worked so well, because I was used to that home life. And so speaking to the squirrel was better. Because it is him, so but I am glad that I didn't do anything final with
Right.
it.
Right.
I mean, I did one prank with it. You want to know?
Uh-huh.
Right. So I live in an apartment building, and the disabled access there is non-existent. There's stairs, there's no handrails, and there's just all this shit. And I was just like trying to fight with them about getting some handrails put up at least, and you know, they weren't going to put any ramps on or anything. So it was very, very complicated getting him out of the house, and it was like a real thing that was making me very angry.
He's in a wheelchair.
He was in a wheelchair, yeah. And he's like 6'2", and I'm like 5'1", so it was wheelchair and then stairs with a walker, and it was like a multi-stage process, and we had to get out every day for radiation. So it was really tough. But they said, okay, we'll put some handrails up for you. And they didn't do that until he was already completely bedridden and terminal. So when I came back from somewhere and there was these handrails just appeared, I just lay on the floor and I was crying. I was just like, you evil. This is just like rubbing it in, you know. It's like, and I actually had told them as soon as he was terminal, I said, you don't have to put those fucking handrails up anymore because it's too late now. And they put them up anyway. And it just broke me. And so after he died, I actually got together with Amber, the mortician in the kitchen. We got a little drunk, and she knew how much I hated the building and handle her. And I said, come on, let's do something stupid. And she was like, what? I said, let's stick top to the handrails. Let's stick a little bit of top to the handrails. So I got some gum, chewed it up a bit, got some ashes, a tiny bit, just token amount. I just mixed it in. And then I stuck it to the underside of the handrail, but with super glue, so it wouldn't come off, and it was there for months. So everybody was touching Tom. I said, come in and out, and I didn't tell anyone because, you know, I didn't want to make it weird for them. It was just for me.
Yeah.
And then I checked, and it'd gone. I think the maintenance guys must have scraped him off, and I said, sorry Tom, you're in a landfill somewhere, but it's worth it, right? It is, isn't it?
A
Didn't say anything,
final joke.
Yeah. That's funny. So yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Do you have any advice if maybe like a friend of yours or somebody listening was thinking about having a home funeral for themselves or for a loved one? Do you have any advice for them going into that, making that decision?
Yeah, it's. I mean, if you can. And especially if your premises allow as well, because like that was a big deal, because we were able to fit a coffin in and out of the door and walk him out and all that stuff. If like it wouldn't have been as easy, say in my house in England, that wouldn't have been the same. So if you have the premises that you know you have the space, just basically decide what you want, and then just tell the undertakers that that's what you want, and just don't take no for an answer, because it is possible. And the mainstream morticians and undertakers, funeral homes here, they're vultures. They want to make as much money from you as possible, so they're gonna sell you these things. And obviously, if you want a home funeral, they're not gonna sell you a lot. But just know what you want to happen, and then basically, if you want to have them at home, just say that's what you want, and take some advice, do some maybe a bit of research. But there's not a lot to it. It's literally having your dead person at home, keeping them cool, making sure you have the physical ability to change the dry ice underneath them, and obviously the bed is important as well. If you have your dead person on your own bed, I think the dry ice is going to ruin the mattress, so you have to keep that in mind, just the logistics. But
I mean, this is LA, it was March, it wasn't like super hot, but it wasn't cold, it wasn't like England, so just having the air on like 55 or something, and just making it happen. It really is, there really wasn't much to it. I mean, I fixed his face. That's not necessarily something you have to do, but if you have contracted an undertaker, they may do it. I mean, maybe, but and if I think it's, even if you were just to do something as simple as tie a towel around their head to stop the jaw from drooping, I think that's probably enough. You don't even have to do the eye caps if you can't, and you don't have to have them exposed. You can have them at home in a coffin closed as well. If you don't want to look at them, it's totally fine. It's just about them being there. And I find like the coffin decorating is just such a, it brings people together, because you're doing something, you're thinking about the person, you're talking to each other, you're like, oh, what are you doing? It's just,
it's very participatory.
It really is. I remember that when I was working in England at the undertakers, there was a lady who died, and she was in the morgue. So, but the family wanted to decorate the coffin, so we put her in the coffin, and then we brought her back to her house in the coffin, and that's where I got the idea of putting on the dining table. So we put her on the family's dining table, and we left her there overnight, and they just had the it was England, so it was probably just cold anyway. And then the next day we picked up the coffin, and then a few days later the funeral happened. So it was that we brought her home, and for me, I wanted to avoid that, but even that helped the family so much, because they invited loads of people. And even if you don't want to have the person, or not want, if you can't for whatever reason have them there all the time, find and ask and find a place that would do that kind of thing for you. And things you just gotta know what's possible, and they don't tell you because they want to make money. And if I hadn't worked for this natural undertaking business, I wouldn't have known what's possible. And that's exactly why I say I want to tell more people about this, and I'll tell anybody who will listen, because it's not that hard. The hardest thing is doing it. That's if you can do it, then it's straightforward. But if you can't, then don't. If you even have a doubt, if you think it's going to traumatize me, because it could go either way. For me, it didn't. It's because I needed that, and it's what he wanted, and so but if it's not for you, be honest. It doesn't have to be. And even if you start and then you change your mind because you have to contract the undertakers, they'll back you up. If you say, oh, I can't do this, they're there to help
change
you.
The plan
They're there to look after your dead and you as well, and make sure you like who you hire. It's not as hard as you think. It's just, like I said, it's being able to do it from in here. And if you're planning it yourself, then obviously you have all the time. If you plan a home funeral yourself, which is, I guess, if you're planning it for yourself, you have to kind of consider like how you die, because if you're in a horrible traffic accident and you're mangled, that you don't want to. You don't want to. I don't think. But so if it's possible for whatever reason, then I definitely recommend it. Definitely don't do it alone. Definitely have your support system with you. We had like 6 guys carry him, and it was just, you just have to do a lot of planning, really. But if somebody's terminal, you do have that time. I didn't ask, in my case, I didn't ask him much about it because of he had brain cancer. He was there, but there was things missing, and I said, oh, what do you want for your funeral? And he just thought I meant what kind of coffin, and he said wicker. I'm like, all right, I'll because he only knew from me working for Carrie that you could get all these different coffins, like banana leaf and cardboard and wicker and whatever. So he kind of, that's where his brain went. So I thought, okay, it's not.
Yeah.
Because of the meds as well and stuff. But he was mainly present.
Yeah.
But I did promise him that I was going to be the one, the last one to close the coffin on him. And I'm proud I kept that promise. And I'm proud I did what I did.
Yeah.
And I would be very happy if I could help somebody else do this as well. So if anybody is watching and they want to ask me anything, I'm happy
so
to, because if it's somebody local, I'll come around and help you. I just something. I mean, I was thinking about retraining, but I just don't think I could do this for others. I think my patience is just not big enough. What we did get, though, I should mention, is a transitional doula, and because I'm in this scene of death and dying community, I didn't know that was there was such a thing, but I came across it, and when the chemo wasn't working anymore, and they said, "This is it," I said, "Right, I want to get somebody to talk to him about that, because I'm not going to make any decisions for him." And the doctor went, "Well, you could just tell him that we refuse to give him the chemo." And I said, "Well, what kind of marriage do you think I have? Why would I lie to my dying husband if the chemo's not working? The chemo's not working. I'm not going to lie to him, because no." I said, "Fuck that." So I got this lady in, and I explained to her what was happening, and then we made a list of options. Some were realistic, like take more chemo, unrealistic, and some were, So we said, so the chemo isn't working. We chatted a little bit, and she says, so the chemo's not working, and you have some options now. So there's different options, because he was wearing like this cancer thing on his head. It's like this special thing for his brain cancer, glioblastoma. It's called the Optune. It's like an electric type of thing, and that keeps the cancer at bay to a certain amount. So it was like, take chemo, use the Optune, or just chemo, or just Optune, or do nothing. And he said, "Oh, I want to continue with the treatment." So she said, "Why?" And had I not got this person in, had she not asked him why, he said, "For Anna." He said, "I want to do it for you, for me." And I didn't want that, because when he was taking the really hard chemo, I kept checking on him because I thought he was dead. He was just sleeping and sleeping and sleeping, and I was just kept thinking he's going to be dead, and he was just sleeping the time away, the little time that we had. So I said, "Well, I don't want that. If you're doing it for yourself, I'll support you whatever you decide, but if you're doing it for me, I'm going to say no, don't." And had we not had that conversation, he would have died a lot sooner, and it would not have been as beautiful last few months, because this lady, she was just, I loved her so much. She was so great.
Is it a transitional doula?
Yeah, she was just Birgitta Kastenau. She said, "So what you're going to do now?" She says, "You're going to dance with the cancer until the dance is over, and then you're going to stop dancing." And that's what we did. And we just stopped everything. Got opportune and said, "Do you want to carry on with that?" And it was very hard to put on because it's a specifically strategically placed stickers and these electrodes and everything, and he has to have like a completely clean shaved head, and I have to kind of go around him, and he has to sit up, and he was getting weaker and weaker, and it was getting harder and harder to put on, and it was hard for him to sleep with it on. And we said, you know, just leave it off for a while, we can always start it again, even though, you know, she and I knew nothing was going to make a difference, but we still wanted to give him that sense of control, even though there wasn't any, but he still had some say in it. So he said, no, we'll leave it off, and we just never put it back on. And he was doing pretty well. You know, we had relapses, seizures. You know, he had to go back, but then it got to the point when he was terminal, we didn't even take him to the hospital, because we knew that if we take him to the hospital for anything, he's not coming back. So we just managed the seizures ourselves, and you know, we had all the meds, and we just did it all ourselves, and then that's what happened, and it was much better that way, much better, because I had him for a little bit longer, and we had all these special moments, and we
got home.
Yeah. It was, and it was just on some days when you kind of forgot, when we were just in our own little world. We'd have a nice time, you know. We'd get all cozy, we'd watch TV and treat ourselves to nice food, because lots of people, they gave us like DoorDash vouchers and stuff, which was, if you have somebody who's going through grief, DoorDash, honestly, Instacart,
that's a great tip.
DoorDash, Uber Eats, anything like that, because that's the last thing you want to do is cook or even think about what to get. That way, he could just have whatever he wanted. And so, do you want filet mignon? You've got it. Anything you want. And we were very fortunate that we had that support, because we know a lot of people, because I work with the public with my events and my cakes, and you know, I got a lot of internet traffic, and he's a performer, he has audience who remembers him, he has friends in different places, colleagues, everything, so there was a lot of support, and you know, we're like, check us out, there's food, and you know, and he got a tiny glass of wine, and you know, it was just pleasant to film. Friends would come, and, you know, like I said, with dogs as well, and we'd have a dog in bed with him, and it was just, and he didn't smell weird either. It was just very calm, peaceful. And I would have continued doing that forever until I die. If I could have him back. He wouldn't want that, but he would just like to be back just as he was. But I would just do anything. I'd take him in any shape or form. But it was hard for him. He was an amazing patient. He really was. The things we had to do to him. He never complained, and with his cancer, it's quite often that people get very angry because it just does something in the brain, and they act very out of character, and their personality changes. It just brought out the sweetest side of him.
That's amazing.
I was so worried that he was going to act strange, or what I was also most worried about was that he'd forget that he's dying, and that I'd have to tell him more than once, and I was really, really stressed about that. And he didn't forget, or he didn't ask again. But
Well, thank you so much for sharing this.
I'd say it's my pleasure, but it's my something. But no, thanks for hearing me out, and it's something that I will continue to speak about. If anybody, like I said, anybody, I'll do another interview anything.
Yeah, and we'll put photos in the
Yeah,
the slide, like in the video form, so people can see too. Because they're amazing. I'm so glad that you documented it as much as you did.
Yeah.
It's amazing to have all those photos. Sometimes people aren't thinking about that, and then
That's it. And I think because it was so small, we made sure to document it so we could share it. And because we have people from different countries, friends from different countries, and family and stuff, so it's that was kind of part of the reason. And I also am glad that we documented it because it translates as well as it was. So I mean, it literally, you can, in the pictures and in the video, you could feel the vibe in our faces. I know we're all smiling, but it's just the smiles of love and not happiness.
Right.
It's just sheer love. Yeah. So thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you, Annabelle.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cute.
Oh,
Yeah.